Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome to part two. Well, I went in, had some lunch, and now we're ready to get rocking and rolling again. We got a storm coming in about 2 hours, so we're going to see if we can finish this up. So I last left, I was putting in these trees, and while I was having a bit of a break, I noticed that if I'm going to make these up tall here and these, the smaller ones here, these might have to go up maybe another inch or two to keep a good perspective. You want a declining size in those trees, even that's going down. So I might have to, especially if I'm going to put a little moose back here, I might have to raise a couple of these up a little higher. But let's go back in and let's put in some of these other trees over here. So I'll take some of the same colors that I used before and some burnt sienna, some green, maybe a touch of blue, touch of violet. These are the cool, darker colors for the tree. And I'm going to use a small number 4 fusion and flat here, and I'm going to take this one right up here by the top and just smush this around from side to side here. It's a little heavy there, so you can do this, push and pull some of this as well, like this. This gives good differences. That's what you want to have more than anything else. You've seen me do it, like I said in the last video, you've seen me do this with bristles, with different sizes of flats, even some rounds, and I've showed you all different kinds of ways to create some of these pine trees. And the high mountain pine trees get real thin, so sometimes we make some real thin ones as well here. So light is coming from the right at the left side here, so we make it a little heavier here and a little darker as we come down here, down into this area. And I might have to, that's a pretty tree there. I might go to a bit bigger one. Now we'll plan it so maybe some of this dark can help him pop off right here off of that background right there, and that's good. And maybe just fan some of this out. I like some of it to be blurry, like back edges and stuff of the tree, and some of it to be more distinct. Here, let's just mix up some more, slightly different each time. They're not always exactly the same. Let's put in a softer one back here and just kind of tap and move side to side a bit, and we'll blur some of that out like that. And maybe a few marks, for we got to put in the tree trunks and stuff like that and other colors. And then we'll come down and add some branches of shadow down in here. Maybe, some areas of heavy shadow. And sometimes, you might just touch in a little yellow or a little, green or something like that to completely change the colors. You can do that as well. Some of these other little colors here. Some back ones back here. Just ideas. Leave some sky holes in between some of that. There. The thing is just try not to be repetitive with your motions. Okay, just try not to be repeating the same motions each time. So we'll do that here. And then as I get further back, I'm going to make these back here start to get a little lighter, we want to head towards this color here. So we've got to go from here to here. So a little more, and some open medium, some transparency back here. Let's put one in here into the midground, somewhere right about in here, into the midground. Now see, I made that one a little higher. So these guys have got to go up just a bit. So a little softer, a little more blurry. And here. Some of these colors here. As it's heading towards the background color here, that's going to work. Let's put just a little heavier. So you can just do marks like this too for more shadow side, especially on the ones that get further out there. You can just put in areas of shadow. You know, get yourself some nice reference, all different kinds of trees, nice references and stuff that you can, you know, use to help pick out some of these shapes. High mountain pines, too, get a little heavier at the top sometimes and then just real wispy. They don't, their branches are all blown around for a while and stuff, so they're not perfect. And that's the hardest thing, I think, in painting, is to do them all a little different. Let's take one up a little higher here. Just the corner. I'm just using the corner of the brush here to just put in some shadow. Then just some wispy colors here. Just like that. Just very, always think, and sometimes I'll scrub a little bit here. That works nice. The very size sometimes get some heavier shadow here, right? And so we'll just keep building these in here. Maybe some smaller ones. And I like what Rungus does. You can tell he spent a lot of time in the back country because he will put even the dead ones in there. But that's true, you know. That goes up a little high there. That wasn't supposed to happen. We'll have to go back. That blue's still a little wet there. We'll have to go back and put some of the color back in there. That's okay. Clean it up. That's part of learning. It's also, you know, cleaning it up. How you clean it up here. There we go. Like that. Change the color a bit. Maybe a bit of burnt sienna and yellow in this. Some back ones. Just ideas here. Go. Get some of this color in here. Back ones. Kind of neat. Sometimes you can, you know, mine I tend to make, it's just kind of my habit, I tend to make them a little thin, taller, thin. Oh, I love that yellow burnt sienna over into that as well. Real pretty. Let's put some in some of the other areas here. Real pretty color variations, especially this is carrying some of the Harmony brown colors of the composition. I like that. And get some of these greens here. And push these around. Sometimes a little thicker, more of a cone shape. He does a lot of the cone shape. Well, he really understood his trees. I mean, he spent a lot of time painting in the backcountry, and so he studied a lot of the shapes of his trees. And you can see, but just so many different paintings. He painted them so many different ways and stuff. So maybe we put just a little bit of one showing up back here. There, just ideas of them. A bit more of our green blue shadow down in here, right where that moose is going to be, so we can play him. So sometimes I plan it that way, we'll play some of his shadows right up there, so that'll help him advance, see? Which works really well. Let's get some of those shadows in here. And then as we go down, here we have to lighten up. So the darkest is right in there. And then we're going to get more and more and more transparent and not as high, descending down. The trees will get a little softer. A little bit of those colors back in there, and I like to use my hand. You could use another brush in there, but we want it to softly head to that back, and we'll let them get a little softer. Maybe a bit of the sky color, which is our sapphire, which will make them softer because the sapphire is in the sky. It's one of the colors in the sky. Here, as these go back, yeah, that's going to work. Here, few close together. Just so you get some nice variations of those. Few little points of maybe some back ones sticking up. Just don't, one of the habits I had for so many years as an artist was I'd line them up like little soldiers and make them all the same size. And now I'm learning to vary the sizes of them a little bit more and a little bit more. So, and then some of them you can push back a little further. So what I mean by that, let me take a cooler color here, greens and some of this. So maybe you push this one further back with a darker color, so it sits further back here. So you get undulation of shadows, in other words, right? So they're not, so there's that one there. Let's push this a little bit right back here, but we don't want to get too far down that way with shadows. But we'll put a few differences of the shadows in here. So you get lights and dark, and then we'll build the lights. And the lights will come over here with our greens and yellows. Here. Greens and yellow. Not too bright. That's why I like the yellow oxide. It's always really nice. A little bit of the beige can give you a different color as well. Let's, concentrate. Well, before I do that, let's take a little burnt sienna, some of our lights, maybe a bit of our medium beige here, and just draw in the idea here. Sometimes I'll just scratch right through the paint here. Sometimes I'll lay it down and create the tree trunk there. Right, so sometimes I just get a light here. Sometimes I'll create the impression of the tree trunk. So you do that by so I use knife edge. This is what we call knife edge, and then I'll widen it down, slowly coming down to get a wider tree trunk in there. We'll put this tree trunk on before we put the lights on. Give the impressions of the tree trunk. So sometimes you just, a lot of artists will just scratch, which we can do here. Just scratch and give those impressions that work really well. I didn't do any over here. I really should do some. Give impressions of tree trunks. Tree trunks are really important because they kind of unify all of these little shapes, the branches and stuff, and bring them together. And sometimes in a big forest, I'll just put a whole bunch of tree trunks all along in there. Like I might give the idea of another one that shows up right there but then disappears. And out here, I just might even add a little more light to it. and almost scratch the surface here. Let them get a little lighter, a little more diminished here. Like that. Little. There we go. And then we'll come in. Now right across some of the fronts of that with the green, and that'll push that into the, that'll push that trunk into the tree there, see? So we'll do that. So right across, imagine leaf or branches coming out towards you, light branches. Left side, this is what's getting hit by the light there, right? And a little open medium, sometimes get some transparency to it here. There. Vary the color a bit. Really like that yellow oxide and green. It's really pretty color. And you can just vary that, adding a little more yellow oxide, maybe a touch of the burnt sienna. Make it a little more, a little different color here. Some of this back here. Back. A little more green. That's a little bright for that back one, so I'll just push into some of that shadow that I had. Let's touch into some of this brighter yellow and right up there. That's kind of pretty. A little brighter green. Let some of this, just quick little, almost transparent touches of some of these colors just disappear here on this side. There, that makes a nice little forest in through there. And you can restate, make a slightly different color. Grab some of that dark with some of that green. Make a little different color. Just add some of it back in through here as well. That works. But that's got a good, nice variety there of some of those. Let's add some of those dead, a little bit more dead trees. We'll take some browns and some yellows here. And I like how he adds those in through there as well. And see, just let some of that fracturing happen here. And just drag out just a bit. Makes it look like a dead one sitting there. Right in here would be a good spot for one. Right in there. And a little yellow, burnt, medium beige, and some white. Right in there like that. Get a few of the branches here, look of the branches here. Breaks up some of the, like the green little soldiers here, maybe one at a slight angle here. Like that. Just some of that. Really kind of neat. Gets that different look in there. Let's get a bit of that trunk down there. You can put bushes in here, which we should have some. You know, bushes and stuff. These little fracture marks, I just take slightly dry paint and just lightly run over the surface there, And it gives a bit of a broken fracturing of the area, so it makes it look pretty neat. There we go. Maybe a little wider on that one right down here. There, like that. So you control that width. This by you're a knife edge, and then you push down slightly, start pulling, and then you can start to see, you know, just how much, you know, you're laying down. Let's take a little bit of that yellow and medium beige and some white and push in. Might even do this with the knife. Push in some of the, he does it all with the brush, but I might just push in some of this kind of soft, get that angle back here, get that nice, a little lighter, maybe a touch of blue, just a little bit, so you get atmospheric back here, right like that. And that might be too much, so I'll take some of that off. And you can scrape it off. Let me show you. You can lift it back off with scraping it like this, or you can pull some of it back to create that grassy kind of line here. Maybe a bit of a slope. Blur it up into the trees and stuff so it looks like grasses. And then if you need to, if it's still too light, just move some other color through it with the flat of your knife. That works pretty good. But I want, right here as I go back around that corner, I want to see some of that light disappearing down over there. So let's get a little more yellows and beige here. And grab some of this, pull some of this down. See, it gives it, see, he uses a brush and real loose marks. I'm going to do it just dragging the knife here, and then I can push up through it. And, you know, like I've showed you in so many other things, you can take any brush and just lift up through it like this and create the little looks of grasses here. And that works really well. Let's go a touch lighter, but thick. See how thick my paint is here? I'm using the thick paint here. So see, then I'll take this edge and just lift up a little bit to create that fractured edge of the grass. So there's some grasses there. And yeah, that works pretty good. Sometimes have a little darker. You could have that burnt sienna, some of that color in to create some shadows, shadow lines, maybe down. And shadows can be a little thinner, so you could add a little extender to it. Remember, shadows are thinner. So we could add a bit. That might be too heavy with the shadow. So I'm just going to dirty my brush with some light and just tap into that. You're interested in just breaking up colors. Does that make sense? There. That works pretty good. Let's put a little bit of yellow into that. See, I look for these modeling of these colors. So I'm not putting on the same colors all the time. Now, he has a real light kind of green along the water's edge there, and I do like that. It kind of plays against the cow here, the moose. So we'll take some of that green, maybe a bit of burnt sienna, a little toned here. Play against some of this. He's standing there in some of that grass. Some of those greens, carry up. Carry up. Get a little lighter, very light touch back here. That's where you see all of that manipulation there just makes that hillside just look great. You know, maybe some fall bush colors here. And that also is some of the colors that you see in the tree, a little burnt sienna. They have some of the colors you see in the trees and stuff. Let's grab a little light blue right into some of that color with some white. And we'll cut that, you know, it's a classic way to do that, to cut that water's edge. Usually you can do it with a brush or so, but I'm going to, let's lighten that up just a bit. So you want it to show up light, a value or two lighter. Here, a little lighter yet. So I sneak up on it. I call this sneaking up on it, slowly getting it light. Here, right like that. And sometimes I get those little burbles, and I'll expand some of them out a bit. And there we go. Cut this. Wave it a little bit. There we go. That's better. Sometimes I'll pull down with that. Sometimes I'll take a brush and pull down to, so I'll use the knife this time, to create almost like reflections in the water. Remember, reflections always pull down. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll put a secondary little light right in it. A little shimmer, so you got the light sky that's it. So this emulates the sky. So usually anytime along the shoreline or something like that, you get a little burble in the water, which hits and reflects the light from the sky. So back up in here, we're going to let that sit just very soft. He's out of the water, she's in the water, but we'll give this all some real gentle lightness to the water. Let's grab a little bit more of that up over here, so it gets just a bigger little dose of it. That looks pretty good. Now, before I get too far away, let's take this tree here and let's go up a little higher. So we're going to go up probably right in here. Right up. We'll make a couple of these a little bigger. So that'll definitely put like 3 planes here. There we go. A little shadow in there. Some shadow. We'll just blur some of that. Let's take another one up a little higher here. Take this one right up here. That'll play nice against that snow. I'm always looking at, when I'm adding trees and all of that stuff, what is it going up against? Am I going to lose something? Am I going to add to it? What is it going up against? Let's carry some of these branches out a little farther so they get a good relationship around that corner. See, that makes it a bigger corner now going around there. I like that. Sometimes you don't see it right away, so I was painting it this morning and just didn't see it. Whoops. Hopefully you see it before you stop painting. So let's put a little shadow in those. That looks pretty good. And then we'll come over here to our lights and add some of those lights here. Sometimes I'll pull them down at little angles, like bigger branches, boughs. They start to get a little heavy and they bend down a bit. So I'll do that every once in a while. And if you get too much, like I got that light a little too much, you can come back, put the shadow in. You can even come back, hit it with just a bit of your knife in a few areas, not all the way. Few areas, just to say, oh, I see the trunk there of that tree. Not everywhere, just a few. There we go. So if we're going to make him like coming right out there, that'd be a good spot. That's kind of pretty, those right in there like that. Okay, so we'll come back in. Let's just put a little cooler right along this edge. Sometimes I'll do the brush. I like the knife. I like a combination. you know, of some of these techniques. So now let's come back in and let's work the water in here. And let me take, during lunch, some of this color dried in my brush, because guess who didn't rinse it out? I didn't. So I'll just work this into here, get some of this color out. And now, you know, if you're using a product, one of our products called like multi-surface sealer, if you're using that in a product, something like that, make sure you rinse that brush out right away. Alcohol won't break that. That is, the multi-surface sealers are very, very hard products. It's like concrete. So the paint and stuff, yeah, the hand sanitizer and stuff can get that paint out of there like I told you. But boy, multi-surface sealer is really hard. Okay, so let's just take a water technique that I've used before several times is I give the area here a light coat of extender because I want this to be a little softer in some of this. So a light coat of extender is going to cause my colors to slide over the surface a little bit. I might leave this because I like the you know, just these reflections right here like that. But in here, I want this a little softer, a little smoother. So let's take some burnt siennas, some of our darks right in here. And we'll pull some of these colors in. I want this in here, this shadows of the water, to be a little softer, a little more glass-like. So I want to add some colors here that'll help smooth it out just a bit. Here, so a little green, a little blue, and I'll actually darken it a little bit, pull down some, but just see how my brush slides over the surface? That's what I want it to do. I want to create this glassy kind of look. Maybe some of the yellows into these lighter greens here. Smoother look. Because you're looking at the calm water reflections into the calm waters of some of those trees and things like that. Right? And we'll take a little bit of burnt sienna, some blues. This is going to be our reflection down of that mousse and stuff here. You can have a little bit of movement like this in here, but you don't want it a whole bunch of edges. You want to soften them out a bit so it appears smoother. Does that make sense? Here, okay. So, and then maybe a little blue as we come out of some of this right over here. And smooth, and then right up against that edge. Don't breathe here. And we can pull some of this as a nice color for those trees reflecting down. So and they'll get very soft back here as they get further away. But we want to pull down some. Remember, the reflection is always a pull down. So a couple of horizontals and then some pull downs, leaving the pull down, which is giving you that softness. A little green and right in here on her, right next to her, right there. So she'll be standing in that, right? That's good. Maybe a touch more yellow and stuff up here, which is gonna, and you could, you know, I was thinking during this, it would be really neat to paint a log right across here. So I may do that, I may or may not. You've seen me paint those before in a lot of the other videos that I've had. I might do that. I was looking at that, at her during lunch going, that might be kind of neat to do that. We'll push up, create a little bit of our grasses here. Here. And now, one of the things I like to do, let's take some of the blues and our whites, our sky color, but not like super light, because we're sitting in like shadows and stuff here. So maybe not as light as what I have out here. Almost. We'll look at that. Yeah, maybe just a touch more blue. The other thing that you have to worry about when you're doing this is what we call simultaneous contrast. So if let me just show you that. So if I put this color over here, it should be just a little darker. You see that? But then I put it over here so it looks darker. But then if I put that over here, see, it'll look lighter right in there like that. It looks like a completely different color here than it does there. So here it is here in its darkness. They look like two different colors, but yet you're seeing me put these on here, right like this. And this is the soft reflections of the water here. It looks like two different colors. That's simultaneous contrast, right? That's the contrast of the color that it's sitting on, casting that look. I'm just going to take some of that off here, clean those yellows and stuff out of my brush here and take those off. And so here, but that's really important stuff, the simultaneous contrast. So you as the artist have to keep that in mind sometimes, because that's very important. You know, if you're making a color and it's going to show up through two different fields or something, you know. Simultaneous contrast. Let's put some of that right out here. Some of that nice soft blue right out there. We'll let that just kind of burble into that. A little bit of it around the shoreline here, maybe a mark or two out here. Some of it definitely right around her, because she'll create little waves and stuff like that, right? And Rungus, in one of his, he has some bushes and stuff coming out here. We might do that here. So he has, which is really quite nice, he has like right up here some bushes and stuff coming out that he pulled right out of the water, right like that, which looks kind of neat. Some of these greens, burnt siennas, yellows, different coloring here. Few of them coming up, right like that. It's what moose do. They sit around these areas here and reeds and stuff, and let's put a little lighter yellow in that here. That's really kind of neat. And you can make that maybe a bit lighter. Let's not go too light, but let's just try a few lighter little hits there. Here, a few little lights coming up there. Here like that. Just little, I'm just using a small flat. This is simplistic. Here we go. Now let's restate blue and burnt sienna. Here, some of her shadows again, right in through there. She shows up in between all of this. There, that reflection. And you can back paint it, make it more precise with some of the yellows that we just put in. But I do want to get a little bit precise on that right where her leg and stuff is in the water. There. That's good, because that's what gives that nice reflection. Blue and burnt sienna. Nice little dark there. Some of her right out there. Right out like that. Take out a little bit of that water's edge blue there. And his reflection in as well. Right like that. So that's pretty good. Yeah, that's coming right along. Now we can go in. Let's go in with the smaller brush. Get that back one from yesterday, or not yesterday, this morning. And let's go back and let's work on now popping some of her colors forward again. So we'll get the lights. Let's get the lights. And when I go light, I add a little yellow, medium beige, and white. Let's go back in and really pop that highlight. That's more like what we see on Rungus' painting as well. Really pop that highlight. So she'll really come forward there, right? And she'll get these beautiful big ears here. There, make it look like that. And there we go. Just like that. Don't breathe. Sometimes I have to stop breathing with the edge of that brush. Whew. Yeah, you can't do very big ones because you have to stop breathing. So let's get a little bit of light right down the front part of her nose there. Right like that. And then it's just a matter of, stating all of these other tones that we did this morning, just kind of pushing through there again. Some of the yellows, and one that I didn't use that much of was the burnt sienna and green, which I really like on mousse and maybe a little blue. And I like that on mousse and on elk and stuff like that. That burnt sienna and green is really a nice color there. And so it's going to be a bunch of different tones here to get her painted. Here's some burnt sienna and some of the medium beige. Here, nice warm color. Right down like that. On some of the mousse that I've done in other lessons with you, we've got those violets and stuff coming in here. Those are real nice. They have that darkness here that comes up from that shoulder blade here. Push that through a bit. There. Yeah, just kind of find your way. She has that big shoulder. Of course, he does too. And that kind of find your way through her shape there. And model some of these colors. There. It's kind of neat. And make sure you have a little bit of shadow for that form roundness. There, like that. Yellow, burnt sienna, some of the darks, just lots of these tones. Soften some of them. There. A little bit of light. She's really kind of fun to paint, but you have to kind of find her way, like find the structures, find her shape, her jawline there. It's very important. Using a little bit of the dark to pull the side plane of the face. There. And that burnt sienna is such an important color on her. Make sure you express some of it. I painted those others, that I did with you, which were really kind of fun. And you got the violets, you know, a lot of that reflected violet into them, which is what they get because they get kind of glossy and they get this cooler violet. Let's reset this barrel shadow here. That's really kind of cool on her. And then, of course, you get some of the lights, the blues, the reflected ones and stuff. So we'll set some of that in as well. He does that, just like a lot of the Western painters that I really like. They do it. A little bit of the little brighter yellow kind of color right up there, right up by her face. There. Yeah, and you can even, you know, get some of those greens. I lost some of them, so I'll hit some of those yellow greens right in here again, just a little bit into her. Again, it just ties them. You know, that's the one thing that you know, you're a harmony painter, so you got to paint some of this stuff. Burnt sienna, some blue, a little violet. Here, nice dark. Find that big forward, so. And see, I'll just drag like that after I do that, and that just kind of sets the shape. We've got a big shadow here for the barrel, her barrel. It's good. And then, you know, like Rungus did there, and looking at his, he's got this big reflected light. Before he adds the blues and stuff, some of the real warm kind of reflected lights, like right up underneath here. Diarylide and some of that burnt sienna. Beautiful, beautiful, warm, kind of soft orangish color right in there. Right up there. Some of that. You know, just touch those warms. Because they really are, you know, they're all dark, but boy, they reflect so many colors, you know, because the way the light hits their coat and stuff, it just reflects so many colors. Beautiful colors. Get some of this up around her eye there. Right like that. Get some of that dark. Of course, you know, his painting of her, she's about 4 times the size of this, so I can only do so much with a little one like this. But we'll give it a go. A little burnt sienna, so just touch. You know, that burnt sienna is a good, what we call halftone intermediate color in between some of that, between your lights and your darks. Let's just use the chisel here. Just put that, take a little bit of blue and violet here and reset that eye. There, that's good. That's kind of good. A little dark bump right up here by her head. So I'll start to look at anatomy bits here, making sure I got that correct as well. A little higher bump here. Here. And that bump can go back onto the shoulders a little bit more. I got it a little bit far forward. Let's do that. Push this back just a bit. And bring that bigger, because it crowds her neck, so she doesn't have as much of a neck. So I'll take a little softer background here and paint back out where she is right in there. Give her more of a neck. And blur that edge too, just a bit. And I think I will go right in there just a touch lighter. Maybe even just a touch lighter. So I can contrast her in that area against that. There we go. Some of those grasses. There. She comes up against that. That looks pretty good. yeah, a little half tone right in here to lighten that part of her up her neck a bit. There. That looks pretty good. Let's get that light back up onto her bump back here, because that's where the light would be, because light's coming from the left. So that looks pretty good there. Right like that. Okay, now for the real beautiful part, we'll take some light and some blue here. Let's start out a little darker than what we think, because it's going to look very light. Let's put that lighter kind of blue stroke that he does on her belly, and a little bit down the back there. He has just marks of it coming up her chest here. There, like that. That's really kind of neat. And he uses this to help break off some of the structure, like the back slope here, the back part of her, her leg there. And let's get that darker back in there again. There, that's good. Yeah, I need just a bit more of this almost bluish, dark. Because that's what, they look almost bluish dark too. Boy, I like that. That darker kind of bluish there. They have here maybe a bit on the lower lip there. Very different. He paints them very different than some of the others like Tucker Smith and stuff like that. And every artist finds your own way, but this, I really enjoy this on her. A little more burnt sienna. Nice dark. Burnt sienna, violet, red violet, and blue. It's just a really good, nice dark. And many times, so like if I get the blue too big or something like that, I'll come back and just touch in some of those darks like that, and that really puts forward. Now, let's thin that just a touch, because when we go back to him, it can't be quite as heavy. So we thin it quite a bit, right? And I really need to go a little bit darker. Let's go to the violets. And if it gets too violet, one of the colors I'm looking for, kind of clean space, I put in it is a little touch of green. Violet and green is also very, very dark. Very, very cool. Let's get see how much darker that is. See, and that really makes her dark. And we can use that in small touches, deep shadows there, and see how it really pops her, that dark here. It's a, oh, I got to put that lighter bit of the back leg in there too. Here we go. Get some of this nice dark right down that leg there. That's good. Maybe just a light little casting of it in here, just to say you did some. But that's really important on her. Bit on that neck muscle there. That's really good. Okay, so I like that. Final little bits, a little touch. Yeah, the beauty of her is going to come from all these tiny little touches of your tones. That's where the beauty is going to come in her. That's really nice. Now, let's go over, let's take that yellow, burnt sienna, and white here, using just the edge of I'm loving painting with just the corners of this brush. let's put that nice light edge of the horns out here, which really make the male, the bull, kind of stand out here. Right like that. Let's give just the chisel some of the marks that create maybe there. We've got to remember he's really tiny. So this is all tiny, tiny. A few, don't breathe, lines out. That's good. Always love the horns of these guys. Are really so fun to paint. There, but this is really small. Really small. Now let's thin some of that down because I got it a bit big. Some of my dark green, blue, burnt sienna, green here. Something close in here will thin down. So we negative paint some of the shape of his horns here. And this is a little wide, so we'll take it out a bit. And I also like to kind of fuzz the edges just a bit because that gives it more distance back there. He has a darker Sienna blue. The shadow part of his horns is up here. So he's going to have some shadow, front part of the horn right here. Right there in shadow. And I was just checking that one back there. It's going to have a little bit of a light that hits right up here. But he's really tiny, so that might be enough for him. Let's get some of the burnt sienna into some of this and start setting some of his shape for his nose. There we go. The light coming down. There. That big burnt sienna and dark chest up here. Nice big wide chest and down into his legs, which will disappear down into the brush there. Nice big, give it a big full couple of crossing strokes there. Fill up that chest. And some burnt sienna blue. Always watch your darkness. I've got to raise his head up here a bit. He's got to be looking up a bit more. There we go. Nothing like redrawing it. Okay. Bit of the shadow here. Back here on his backside. Right down into that leg. Oh, I've got to put that other back leg on too. Nice sloping back here. Right like that. And all that dark is really starting to advance him. So I got to get some lights on there to start pushing him back. Soft lights. Start pushing some of him back. Here. Taking out some of the darks. Now we won't get as much color as she does because he's way back there, see? So see how the lights, as I'm putting them on, see how he starts to recede again. So it's a balance that you do, you know. We don't want to put that light on him, even though I really want to get maybe a little more yellow and white, just a touch lighter on the back of his horns back here. Here we go. Just like that, just a bit of that. And here onto his face, we'll move his eye because we're changing the way he's looking. Here down this side, here. Little bit of the burnt sienna and blue to take some of that tan away. Use that color to reduce the dark. So he's starting to set back there a little further now, see? And we'll take just a bit of our darker color in here and give him kind of an eye area here. Blurry. Everything is real blurry, so don't try to paint too distinctly in here. Just let it be kind of blurry. Little medium beige is just so nice. Even look at how light even that looks right back there on him. That's amazing. It's that simultaneous contrast. It's going right up against that dark, you know. Yellow, burnt sienna, medium beige. These are all great, just different colors here to use on him. Get that nice big chest in there. There we go. A little bit of shadow. There, that's good. Need to get a more definite shadow right up underneath here since I changed his angle a bit. There we go. And I got his face just a little bit too kind of rounded here. It has to be a little more blocky. Here. There we go. Yeah, he's kind of fun to paint. He's a little harder, but kind of fun. There we go. And I think, yeah, I might take a little light yellow, maybe a touch of green, lighter, a little more yellow, medium beige, clean up this back line right back here a bit, and that'll help him pop forward just a bit of this color. Here. We don't want to pop him too far forward, but that'll help him stand out a bit more. And we'll push some of that medium beige and white as the light colors. Now we'll add some of the lights that are going to hit him right here. Probably a little too light. Maybe just a little more medium beige. Some of the darks. There. He's really kind of fun. Very tiny painting. Let's get that wider chest in there. There we go. Got that, his eye here, a little too blue. Yeah, that's a lot better. And here, just there, like that. That's better. That's finding him. He's not quite there yet, but he's little touches of shine and stuff like we did along in her. I've got to get some of those in there. Just a little touches. That adds those little tiny shines and shimmers, just add a whole bunch to the look here. So I did that. We got to get his bigger shoulder right here. Bring that up. Yep. And a little bit of light coming. It's going to hit that side of him. Maybe a little bit more. Here we go. Isn't that fun? That's, yeah, now, he's very, very soft. I could have some, that burnt sienna orange kind of with the Diarylide burnt sienna. That's really a pretty color. And we could use a bit of it on him to help warm it up. That's also, see that, just a little bit of it on him. That looks really good. Let's put some right down on his chest. Then I'll reset that dark of the chest. So a lot of it, you know, one of the things that I do, and I told you that in the first video this morning, was I paint back and forth. I cross edges back and forth, slowly changing and building him to what he needs to be. So, you know, that, and it's that back and forth that really gives the interest. So let's get that neck shadow right there. Here we go. That's really kind of neat. That shadow onto his rump a little bit more. Right there like that. That's really kind of neat. And I have that neck. It's just, I don't know, it's just a little too like sloped. It's all the same slope right from there to there. And I want him to kind of straighten out a little bit. I'm going to back into that and build his chest a bit. So I might end up, so what I'll do is just do this, pop it out so I can see him better. And then we'll build up his chest. So his chest should come right out to here, should be that big muscle. And then it comes back. That's better. And let's use this lighter orange. Coming right down that. That's better. And his chest has got to pop out. That's just like on a horse and stuff, you know. That chest, those big muscles up front. That's what's got to pop out on him there. And I didn't have that quite right. Let's get a little more shadow right down in here. That shadow comes down there. And that big chest shadow here. There. That's better on him. Yeah, and this. It'll probably, this will probably be all right. Just smoosh that a little bit. Yeah, and I still got to correct his face just a bit. He's a little too pointed here, so. You know how they got that lower lip and stuff that drops down just a bit, so. And it's really small, but I can see it, so. We'll just drop that down. Give the impression of it there. See, sometimes just a little mark will look like it, and I'm pretty close to it. Here. There we go. Pretty close to it. I think I'll let that dry, and it needs a little bit more correcting in there, but I need to probably finish up a few, you know, sometimes it's just like this. I'm getting to a point where I'm working on it a little too much. So we all get there. That's better. we all get there like that. We work on it a little too much. I want to get that form shadow a little darker like I first had on him right here, which is, that's better. That sets that shadow in there better. That's better. And she's darker, and I got to get that lighter little yellow, tan, beige, lighter inside, because the inside of their legs here are lighter. So you see that little lighter inside leg there, and you'll see it on this one. There we go. A little bit of that. That helps her. It's just those little things just help her show up a bit more. A bit of that light right there. Yeah, I like those two. I like those two. Now, and then back out here, we're just going to take just a little dark set here. Just kind of like give him a big chest and something disappearing into the woods there. And then what will really make him look like it is a set of the lighter, or the feeling of the set of the lighter horns. Like that's just going to be an impression. I like that. I like it. Yeah, a little lighter, a little touch of the light there. It's coming out into the light. There's Mr. Moose. A bit of that light on his horns. There. Who are you? Yeah, now, okay, so I like all of that. Now we have to, and I do like the casual nature of everything that's going on here into the water and everything. I can, let's use this big one here. Let's remoisten. Now we're going to take some of our light color, the white and the blue. And we had, remember that was a sky, we had just a touch of the phthalo in it. So we're going to remoisten here. Let's see, that's really close. But I like some of the, I want a bit of variation. So maybe a touch of phthalo here and there in it. So, you know, it's not just one solid color. And we'll use that to go back here, right back here. Now that'll dry a little darker, so let's add a touch more light here and add some whispers of the light so we get a little variation into the color. That's what I want in the water there, just a little variation into the color. And then we'll come in here and tap in like this. Now see, the reason why we do this is it breaks those edges, and it's going to make it look like little reeds and stuff like that, where it's not completely smooth. Now, you know, like into the Photoshop that I did there, I had to create that blue and push that in there and change a few things, but it's best to paint it like this. Just tap those edges in there and let that, you know, it's not a smooth edge. And sometimes we'll take that knife and we'll just roll a line or two here, you know, for a little water mark, right? We'll just tap along that here. There we go, just like that. Then we'll put up just some simple grasses and stuff up here into the front. And I'll probably do, you know, he did it really, really brush simple. We'll take some yellows, some burnt siennas, some of these colors, a little blues. Just tap into some of this. We'll put some of this on And then we will add some shadows. So we're going to keep this very simplistic. Some of this can come back here like it comes into the water. Let's take a little burnt sienna and some blue. Now, we don't want to get too dark because we got to remember that's our drawing in. But we do want to put a bit of this here so we see a bit of that shadow, right? And some of this can just... Now, you can use all kinds of ways. I'm just going to use the soft brush because I want to emulate his softer technique there. But you can use, like I've done before, some of those little pastry brushes, bristle brushes. You've seen me do some of that. So I'm going to keep this, though, very soft. Let's get that color poked into there. A few little bits of it coming out. That looks pretty neat. Maybe a little bit of it around. And now let's get a little yellow and a little white. Model that into the brush. And some of this up kind of soft. Try to turn and use your brush here, different corners of it. This is that 1-inch fusion flat. And so I'll use different corners of it here to create some different, different textures, looks. Maybe have a little green in it. So it's a little, so it doesn't get quite so warm here. Oh yeah, that green looks nice in there. That looks nice. And yeah, let's go just a touch lighter. We don't want to create a whole bunch of contrast, but just a few little lights. Here. Here we go. Softer little grasses. You could even bend in some water right around through here. That really would look kind of neat. Let's put a few little touches out into here. That's kind of neat. I've done it also with the knife, and you've seen me use these things all the time to put little grasses. Let's just try that, but it might be too precise. Does that make sense? In other words, too much of a line. I want this to be soft right here so you draw into here. And if I come in here and start doing this, that might be, I might do a few, but, and I might blur those out because this just might be too much. But it does bring it forward, see? So that's going to be a personal decision there. I can see that amount of softness there, but it is just a little bit, maybe too much. So maybe I just wipe my brush and pull through just gently to soften that just a touch. There. Like that. That I like. That'll be nice. Let's don't get carried away here, Dave, but maybe a bit right up here. Right like that. Might leave, well, let's not. Let's just blur them off. So touch them off and blur them. And there we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Overall, it's a little bit darker like his. Now, I think, though, I really want to work that water right in here to really help her. So I'm going to rinse this out really well. And let's go the blue. Let's go reset our blue here. A little bit of the violet, maybe a bit of the phthalo, and then really lighten this up. Get some extender into it. really lighten this up. Let's take a look. Right in here, I want to pull the viewer in here. So I want to look at it even, so that might be a little too violet. Let's go a little more blue and a lot more white. And a lot more white. Probably really lighten this up. Nice thick paint. Thick paint. Here. And you see how that creates a light dark right around her a little bit? That's what I want to create, to pull the viewer in here a little bit more. So we'll soften this blue out. Pull this, and I'm just going to let this kind of drag out here. The softness of the brush will soften it out. So it's like shimmers on the water right there. Let's touch in just a bit more here. Build it right in that area. Does that make sense? So your eye really pulls right in here. That's your goal. So you look at all the tools you have as an artist to bring that in. Light and dark. Maybe a, slightly different blue, or a little bit more violet in it, or something a little different than what's everywhere else. And that really pops that blue right there, see? And we'll granulate. This is granulation. Let the color just run off, and that'll create like little shimmers. And I don't want to go that far forward. So just like that. And I might just put a soft, little bit more blue. Let's add a little extender, a little more sapphire, a little grayer, softer blue, a little more, and a little bit of blue. Thin it out here. There we go. So this gets a softer little blue out through here. Just like that. So that light, we'll leave a few little marks of that light. So you really kind of see that light right there, and it pulls you right in there. That's what I'm working on. Now you can really pull it in there by putting just a little bit more on her. I mean, you look at how much he put onto those there. She really pops forward, and I don't know if I want to. You can always put it on, let it dry, see if you like it, and then, change it later. So, and, if you really want to pop her up, really want to give his horns there, I'll bring him forward just a bit more. That's a personal choice of contrast now. There's no wrong or right now. It's contrast. So, and everybody's a little different. There you go. I like that. That was a fun painting. You could work more on the trees, but I don't want to. I want it to be about this right here. And so, yeah, I think maybe some of this, not quite as light, but could come down the edge of him so that it gives the feel of his neck. But yet, I don't want to get that swooping thing that I had earlier. There we go. And, but that works. It was an enjoyable painting. I hope you guys give it a try, because it is really fun. And I during lunch I did add a little more shadow and a couple other little bits of the light here and stuff. So that's up to you. I like that working around through there. I think I will add just a tiny bit more dark, since dark in this painting is really the part that pulls your eye. Let's just add just a tiny bit more to him in here. There we go. Him coming out of there. Yes. Kind of fun. Who are you? Yeah, that's why I wanted to call it the intruder alert here. little bit of bushes. There. Yep. He's coming back there. See, you don't, when you're painting simplistic like this, you just need to have like the big horns and a shape, oval shape for his body and his little head. That's all he needs there, because, you see him everywhere else. I mean, you see him clearly over here. Everyone knows what he is here. I need to do just a little bit of shaping on him, but I might, just a bit darker on the top of his nose here. Get that shape in his face here a little bit better, because should drop down just a bit here. So, but I'll fix that. That'll take me just a bit. I got him looking like a deer now, so I have to get that rounder front nose there. So I'll get that, and then we're gonna call this here a little bit rounder. There. Could have that squared off. You know how they have that funny little, the bottom juts out just a little bit more there. There we go. That's better on him. That's better. Could round down just a bit more, but that's working better. Hard for you to see that, and you don't need to get that detailed on it. I just like it. So there you go. That's kind of a fun painting. So, so what, we did 1 hour and 40 minutes this morning and 1 hour and a half here. So 2-3 hours. I thought between 3 and 4 hours. That's really good. That really works. I like how that works, and that shimmer. We might increase the shimmer and the shine. Take some of this right up in front here. Here's the other one there, but we might just increase that a bit. If I could find where I did my knife here. Just a little bit, like right in here. Just right in line with her right there. Some of these can come in and out a bit. And that works. There. That's kind of neat. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed it. I did. It was a heck of a lot of fun. We got to go back and so there's a wildlife one. We got another floral to do. We have to do a more complicated master floral to do with you guys too. And I've had some requests to go back to animal portraits and stuff, so I got to do some of those. So we got a lot of stuff going. We're going to paint with a lot of different things this summer. Don't forget also on our Paint It Simply channel, we have some flowers. It's a summer of flowers over there. So my flower painters, don't forget to go over to that Paint It Simply channel and keep an eye on that, because that one's going to be a lot of fun as well, okay? So there you guys go. Please hit the subscribe. Please like the video. It helps us a lot. If you like the videos, you got to like the videos. Please just click like on that. Just take a couple seconds to do that, and because it does help us a lot, okay? I could increase the pull down there a little bit for the reflections, but I think overall it's not too bad. That worked out pretty good. Okay? All right. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you on the next one, which will be in just a day or two. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.